The prison ship landed on a dry moon covered in red dust. The engines roared for a moment, then went silent. Metal doors opened, and a group of prisoners stepped out under the hot light of twin suns. Most of them were tall Varnari with green or silver skin, but one prisoner stood out. He was shorter, with brown hair and simple clothes. His name was Bram. He was the only human. A guard pushed him forward with a long stick. Bram did not speak. He looked around calmly, taking in the strange new world. The other prisoners looked at him with confusion or laughter. To them, humans were weak and backward. They came from a quiet planet far from the core worlds. They were not warriors. They were not clever. They were not important. The prison camp was surrounded by sharp rocks and tall fences. Strange machines floated in the sky, watching every move. Inside the camp, the prisoners were placed in groups. Bram was put into a group that included a Varnari girl named Kira. Kira had silver skin and eyes like glowing ice. She walked with pride and kept her head high. She was not like the others. She had once served as a warrior in the Varnari fleet, but was thrown into prison for refusing to follow a cruel order. She spoke little and trusted no one. When Kira first saw Bram, she frowned. "What is this?" she said, not bothering to hide her voice. "They send children now." Bram heard her but said nothing. He simply nodded once and sat down on the dusty ground. For the first few days, Bram kept to himself. He ate the food without complaint. He followed orders but did not speak unless spoken to. The others thought he was simple. Some laughed at him. One Varnari man dropped a bowl of food near him and called him soft. Bram only picked up the bowl and gave it back. Kira kept her distance, but watched him closely. She didn't like mysteries, and this human was full of them. One evening, as the twin suns set, a cold wind blew through the camp. Bram sat near the wall, drawing shapes in the dust with a stick. Kira walked by and stopped. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Just thinking," Bram said. "About what?" "About the stars." Kira narrowed her eyes. "You don't look like a thinker." Bram smiled. "Looks can fool you?" Kira turned away, not sure what to say. She didn't like the way he spoke. Not rude, not proud, just quiet, like he knew something she didn't. The next morning, everything changed. A storm came out of nowhere. The sky turned dark, and strong winds slammed into the camp. Dust and sand flew everywhere. The fences shook. Guards ran to shelter, shouting warnings. The prisoners were told to stay inside. But the wind was too strong. A small tent where 6 prisoners were hiding began to collapse. Kira saw it first. She ran to help, but the wind pushed her back. The tent ropes snapped. Metal poles flew like arrows. Then Bram appeared. He picked up a flat metal sheet and held it up like a shield. He ran into the storm, covering the broken side of the tent. He shouted for the others to hold it in place. His voice was calm but firm. The others followed his lead. Together, they kept the tent from falling. When the storm ended an hour later, the tent was still standing. The guards came back, surprised to see no injuries. One of them looked at Bram with a strange expression. Kira stood nearby, silent. She had seen something during the storm. When Bram held the metal sheet, sparks had jumped from his hands to the surface. The sheet had glowed for a moment, as if it were alive. That night, Kira walked up to him. "You helped them," she said. "They needed help," Bram replied. "That's not what I mean," Kira said. "You knew what to do." "How?" "I've been through storms before," he said. "Different kind, but still storms." Kira studied him again. His eyes were calm, not afraid. His hands were steady. He didn't move like someone weak. "You're not just a traitor," she said. "No," Bram replied. "I was never really good at trade." She almost smiled, but stopped herself. "Where are you really from?" she asked. "Earth," he said. "I know that," she replied. "But what part? What kind of place trains people to act like this?" Bram looked up at the stars. "A small place," he said. "But it teaches us to survive, even when others think we can't." Kira walked away, confused. She didn't like not knowing the answer to something. And this human, with his quiet voice and strange ways, was becoming more interesting than she wanted him to be. The next day, Bram was working near the machine yard. He picked up scraps of metal and sorted them by size and shape. Kira passed by and noticed the pattern. "You're building something," she said. "Maybe," he replied. "What is it?" "I'm not sure yet," Bram said, "but I'll know when it's ready." Kira stared at him. He was not what he seemed, and she didn't like that feeling. But deep inside, a part of her was curious, and that part was growing. The sun rose slowly over the desert moon, casting long shadows across the camp. The air was dry, and dust moved in the wind like faded smoke. Bram sat near a broken wall, picking through pieces of metal and wire. His hands moved with care, turning each piece over as if he could read its story just by touch. Kira watched him from a distance. She told herself she didn't care what he was doing, but her eyes kept returning to him. Something about the human felt off, and not in a bad way. He acted calm in a place built for fear. He never complained. He didn't fight, but he also didn't break. That made him different. Later that morning, a guard shouted across the camp. A group of prisoners was needed for a work task. Bram and Kira were both chosen. The guards pointed to a distant hill where a cargo ship had crashed days ago. They were told to carry pieces of the wreck back to camp. Kira walked beside Bram as they climbed the rocky path. It was steep, and sharp stones cut into their shoes. The other prisoners groaned and cursed, but Bram said nothing. He climbed like someone used to hard roads. At the top of the hill, the crashed ship looked like a twisted sculpture of metal. Pieces were scattered everywhere. Some were half buried in the dust. Others stuck out like broken bones. Kira bent down and lifted a large beam. It was heavy, but she held it with strong arms. Bram, meanwhile, walked past the obvious parts and headed straight to the base of the wreck. He crouched beside a cracked panel and touched a glowing line of wires. "What are you looking for?" Kira asked. "Smart metal," Bram said without looking up, still has energy inside. "Why do you need it?" "It remembers shape. I can use that." Kira raised an eyebrow. She had trained in tech systems during her time in the fleet, but very few knew how to use smart metal by hand. It was usually shaped by machines. She watched him pull out a small tool from his belt. It looked handmade. With it, he cut a thin piece of wire and placed it in his pocket. On the way back down, the sky began to change. Dark clouds rolled in. Fast, the winds picked up. A second storm was coming. The guards shouted. Everyone had to return before the storm grew worse. But the shortcut back to camp was through a narrow pass. Between tall cliffs, the pass was dangerous during heavy wind. Many chose the long road instead, but that meant being out in the storm longer. "We'll go through the pass," Bram said. The others hesitated. One prisoner, a tall Varnari named Roke, stepped forward. "Are you crazy? That place fills with rocks when the wind hits," Roke said. "Only if you don't move fast," Bram replied. "We can make it in 5 minutes." Kira looked at the sky. The storm was moving faster than expected. "He's right," she said. "It's risky, but we don't have time." 6 prisoners followed Bram and Kira into the pass. The wind howled around them, pushing dust and small stones through the air. The walls of the pass were high and jagged. Kira could already hear the low rumble of falling debris. Then it happened. A large stone cracked loose from above and landed near their feet. Another one tumbled down, missing Bram by a few inches. The path was closing. "Run to the bend," Bram shouted. "Stay against the left side." The group moved quickly. Bram stopped near a narrow ledge and looked up. He touched a large stone resting above them and tapped it with his fingers. Kira reached him. "What are you doing?" she asked. "This stone holds others back," he said. "If it falls later, we'll be trapped. If I release it now, it will clear the path." He pulled out the tool again and wedged it under the stone. With a hard push, the rock slipped free and crashed to the ground. A cloud of dust rose, but the falling danger above stopped. The path was open. They ran through the rest of the pass without delay. By the time they reached camp, the first wave of the storm had started. The guards let them in just as lightning flashed across the sky. Rain fell in short, fast bursts inside the shelter. The group sat on the ground, catching their breath. Roke looked at Bram and gave a slow nod. "Maybe you're not so soft," he said. Kira looked at Bram too, but her thoughts were deeper. She had seen how he studied the stone, how he calculated weight and angle, how he understood the way things worked. No ordinary human did that, at least not without special tools. But Bram used only his eyes and hands. Later that night, Kira approached Bram near the fire pit. He was twisting the smart metal between his fingers. It had taken a new shape, thin and curved like a small hook. "You saved us today," she said. "I didn't want anyone hurt," Bram replied. "You act like a traitor, but you think like an engineer." Bram gave a small smile. "I like to learn." She sat beside him. The fire crackled between them. "You knew that rock would fall in the right way." She said, "You knew more than you showed." "I watch, I listen," Bram said. "That's what my people do best." Kira leaned back and looked at the stars above. "Maybe we've all been wrong about your people," she said. Bram didn't answer. He just looked at the fire, quiet and thoughtful. But his eyes were sharper now, and Kira knew that something was waking inside him. And whatever it was, it would not stay hidden for long. Scylla stood by the window again. It had become her favorite place. From there, she could see the ships coming and going. She could watch the sky change color. Most of all, she could think. She had many thoughts now, more than ever before. She touched the small book in her hand. It had become important to her. Even though she could not read it yet, every page was a promise. A promise that one day she would understand the words. A promise that her mind was free. Ren entered the room with 2 cups of warm tea. He placed one on the table and gave the other to Scylla. "You are up early," he said. "I could not sleep," she replied. "I kept thinking about yesterday." "Good thoughts or bad ones?" he asked. "Both," she said. "I thought about how it felt to say my name, like it truly belonged to me." Ren sat down. "It does belong to you." She nodded slowly. Then she said, "I want to learn more, not just letters. I want to learn about Earth, about people, about freedom." Ren smiled. "Then let's begin." That day, Scylla and Ren walked through the Varn Palace gardens. The tall silver trees swayed gently in the wind. Birds with shining wings flew above them. The air smelled of sweet flowers. Scylla looked at the other servants moving through the garden. Most of them were carried like her. Their eyes stayed low. Their steps were slow. They wore the same plain robes. None of them spoke. One girl, no older than 10, walked by carrying a tray of fruit. She dropped a piece by accident. She looked frightened and bent down to pick it up quickly. A guard nearby glared at her, but said nothing. Scylla's hand tightened into a fist. She looked at Ren. "They are like I was," she said. "Yes," Ren said quietly. "No one asks them what they want," Scylla said. "They are not free." "I know," Ren replied. "That is why I wanted to speak with you." Scylla looked at him with sharp eyes. "There are others like you," he said. "People who want change. Not just humans. Some Varn too." Scylla blinked. "Varn. But they rule this place." "Not all of them agree with the old ways," Ren said. "Some believe the carry and others should have rights." Scylla stayed silent for a moment. Then she asked, "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing you do not choose," Ren said. "But I believe your voice matters. You are not just a symbol now." Yoayu said, Part 3 1,000 words Kaleko or interesting Hunachea or third-person style. Malekniha or simple basic English. Ka, don't use any violated word. So please avoid any violated content. Don Tus. said. Here is part 3 of your sci-fi story in simple, clean, and engaging third-person style. As requested, title, They called her a pleasure pet until she locked eyes with me and whispered, "Take me home." Part 3. The story she never told word count. Approximately 1,000. The ship flew quietly through open space. Brent sat in the pilot's seat, guiding the ship away from known routes. Stars filled the black sky, calm and endless. Beside him, Lumi sat with her hands folded on her lap. Her eyes stayed on the screen. but her mind was far away. They hadn't spoken since they escaped the trade station. Now, in the silence, Bren could feel her thoughts pressing against the air like a quiet storm. He turned his head slightly. "You said you were ready to tell me everything." Lumi nodded slowly. "Yes, you deserve to know the truth." Bren didn't say a word. He waited, watching her face. "I wasn't born in chains," she said softly. "I was born on a green world called Reese. It was a peaceful planet. The land was full of gardens, oceans, and libraries that reached the sky. My people believed in peace and learning." Bren could hear the sadness in her voice, but also pride. "My mother was a diplomat. My father worked in research. They taught me many things: how to speak, how to listen, how to understand people. We were not rich, but we were respected. Then one day, everything changed." Lumi looked down at her hands. They came without warning. Ships from the Syndicate, fast, dark, and quiet. At first, we thought they came to talk. But they didn't want peace. They wanted control. Bren leaned forward. "Control of what?" "Our history," she said. "My people kept ancient records, hidden knowledge, maps of forgotten colonies, stories of lost civilizations, and keys to technology even they could not understand. The Syndicate wanted all of it." "Did they get it?" Bren asked. "No," Lumi said. "My people refused to give it. We hid the records. We burned copies. Some tried to escape. But the Syndicate was fast. They destroyed our communication lines and took control. I was captured during the first week." Her voice lowered. "I was 12. Bren felt a deep ache in his chest. "They put me in a cell," Lumi continued. "I was moved from ship to ship. They saw I looked human. They said I would sell well. So they trained me. They taught me how to speak, how to walk, how to act quiet and pretty. They called me a pet, but I never forgot who I was." She looked up at Bren. "Even when I smiled for buyers, I was memorizing their voices, their names, their ships. I knew someday I would escape." "And you did," Bren said quietly. "No," Lumi replied. "You helped me. I saw something in your eyes that I hadn't seen in yours. You didn't look at me like a thing. You looked like someone who still remembered right and wrong." Bren said nothing. He only listened. "There's more," she said. "Before my mother was taken, she gave me something. Not an object, but a memory. She made me memorize a path, a hidden route through space, one that leads to a place called Haven Reach." "What is Haven Reach?" Bren asked. "It's a lost colony," Lumi said. "One of the last safe places my people knew. A world untouched by the Syndicate. My mother believes some of our people escaped there during the invasion." "Do you think they're still there?" Bren asked. "I believe at least some are," she said. "And if they are, they might still have the original records. With them, we can show the galaxy what the Syndicate has done." Bren looked out the window at the stars. "If we do that, they'll come after us." "They will," Lumi said. "They already are. But if we stay silent, they win. And they'll keep taking others like me." A long silence followed. Bren stood up and walked toward the back of the ship. He poured a small cup of water, then handed it to her. "So what do we do now?" he asked. "We follow the route," Lumi said. "But we must be careful. We need fuel. We need supplies. And maybe we need help." Bren nodded. "I have a contact. He's an old friend. Works at a fuel station on the edge of the Corn Belt. If anyone can give us a clean path, it's him." Lumi took the cup and drank slowly. "Then we go there first." She stood and walked to the window. Her reflection in the glass looked stronger than before. Not like a servant, not like a prisoner. She looked like a survivor. Bren watched her. Carefully. "You still haven't told me why you trusted me." Lumi turned around. "Because I saw something in you." "What?" She smiled softly. "You looked angry, but not at me. You looked angry at the world that let things like this happen." Bren looked away for a moment. "Maybe I am. It's a good kind of anger," she said. "The kind that makes people stand up and do something." He sat back in the pilot's chair. "Then let's do something." Lumi joined him. She placed her hand on the edge of the console. "I'll guide you. I know the path, but once we're in the deep zones, we won't be able to send signals. We'll be alone. Bren smiled. We're already alone. She gave a soft laugh. Not anymore. The ship moved forward through the stars. Ahead of them, danger waited, but so did hope. Behind them was pain, silence, and chains. Ahead of them was something new, a journey that would change everything. And this time, Lumi wasn't just a passenger. She was the key. The room was quiet except for the soft sound of paper turning. Sela sat with her legs crossed on the floor, reading from a small book. She had reached the end of the alphabet and could now read simple words. It made her feel powerful in a quiet. Wei Dairan stood at the other end of the room. He watched her with calm eyes. He had just returned from a meeting with another human envoy, but his mind stayed on Sela. You've learned fast, Ren said. Sela looked up and gave a small smile. I wanted to understand your words, not just hear them. You do more than understand. Ren said, you teach others now. Sela nodded. They come every day, sometimes in secret, sometimes just for a moment, but they come. Are they afraid? Ren asked. Yes, she said. But they still come. Even fear cannot stop a person who wants something real. Ren sat down beside her. What do they ask you? Some ask how to speak Earth words, Sela replied. Some ask about your world. One asked what freedom feels like. Ren was silent for a moment. What did you say? I said I don't know yet, but I want to find out. That night, Sela sat near the window. The stars outside blinked like small lanterns. A cool breeze moved through the room. Her eyes stared at the sky, but her mind was deep in thought. Suddenly, a memory came to her, a sound, a river, a voice calling her name. She closed her eyes. She saw a small girl running across a wooden bridge. Behind her, a woman with long dark hair laughed and held out her hand. Sela, wait, the voice said. Sela opened her eyes quickly. Her heart beat faster. She stood and walked to the small garden. The flower she had planted was in full bloom. Now, white petals, strong stem, living proof of care and time. She touched the edge of the flower. You waited, just like me. Ren stepped outside. Are you all right? Sela turned. Her voice was soft. I remembered something new. He walked closer. What did you remember? My mother's voice, she said. She called my name. She was smiling. That's a good memory. Ren said. Yes, Sela said. It felt warm. It didn't hurt. She paused, then added. I think it means I'm healing. The next day, Ren was called to the central meeting hall again. The Emperor would be present this time. You don't have to go. Sela said. I do, Ren replied. But I'll be careful. Before leaving, he looked at her. If they ask about you, I will not speak for you. I will tell them that your voice belongs to you. Thank you, Sela said. The hall was filled with leaders and advisors, tall, quiet, and watchful. The Emperor sat on a high chair made of silver and black stone. He wore a long robe and his face showed no feeling. You are called here, the Emperor said, because strange things are happening. I understand, Ren said. The carrier speaking, the Emperor continued. Some refused to bow. Some asked questions. Some even write. I have heard these things too, Ren replied. Is this your doing? The Emperor asked. Dairan stood straight. They do not follow me. They follow their own hearts. I only gave them the tools. And now they want change. Yes, the Emperor looked down at him. That is dangerous, maybe. But silence is worse. There was a long pause. Then the Emperor spoke again. You may leave. Ren bowed and walked out without fear. When he returned, Sela was waiting. Others were there too. Tira, Kavi, two younger carry with hopeful eyes. They know, Ren said. Are we in danger? Tira asked. Maybe, Ren said. But you are not alone now. Sela stood. Her face was calm, but her voice was firm. We will not stop, she said. We will read. We will speak. We will remember. Kavi stepped forward. Then let us share more than letters. Let us share stories. Sela nodded. Yes. Let us remember who we were. That evening, they sat in a circle. No lights, just candles. Each person told one memory. Tira remembered the sound of rain on her roof. Kavi remembered a song her mother sang, Another boy remembered the feel of sand between his toes. Scylla waited until the end. Then she said, I remember my mother calling my name. She held out her hand and smiled. I didn't know what it meant back then. Now I think she was asking me to come home. The room was quiet. The candle flames flickered. Then Scylla added, and now I know. Home is not a place. It's the moment. When your voice returns to you. Later that night, a soft knock came at the door. Ren opened it carefully. A young Carrie stood outside. He looked around, then stepped inside. I heard about the garden, he whispered. Can I help care for it? Ren nodded. Of course. Then Timur came. They said nothing. Just entered and sat near Scylla. More kept coming. By midnight, the room was full. Carrie from kitchens, halls, and guard posts. None spoke loudly. They just sat and listened. Scylla stood. You came, she said. So now I ask, what do we grow next? A small voice answered, Hope. Another said, Truth. Another whispered, Fire. The kind that burns chains. Scylla nodded. Then, we will grow them all. In the corner, the candle in the water bowl burned low. Its light touched every face in the room and in the heart of the empire. A quiet fire had begun to rise. The palace was quiet, but it was not peaceful. The air had changed. The guards looked around more often. Servants spoke in whispers, and behind closed doors. The name Scylla was being spoken with both fear and wonder. Inside Ren's guest quarters, Scylla stood in front of a group of 12 Carrie. They sat in a circle, some holding notebooks, others just listening. We were taught to obey, she said. Now we are learning to think, and soon we must speak. Kavi nodded. We have already begun. Yesterday, Tira added, the guards saw me reading. They said nothing, just walked away. They are watching, said a quiet voice from the back. Some agree with us, others are afraid. Ren stepped forward. You are being noticed. That means your voice is reaching farther than this room. Scylla looked around. Then we must decide, do we stay hidden, or do we stand? There was a pause. Then one by one, they stood. Scylla did not smile. She only nodded. Then we moved forward. News of a carried reader's circle spread through the lower levels of the palace. Some thought it was only a rumor. Others began to look for signs. Books missing. Papers with strange symbols. Silent nods passed between servants. Scylla had become a name shared in secret. To the Var nobles, it was trouble. To the Carrie, it was hope. One morning, a message came from the emperor's house. Scylla was called to appear in a special ceremony. Ren frowned as he read the message. It's not usual for them to invite someone like you. It is a warning, Scylla said. They want to remind me of their power. You don't have to go. Ren told her. I do, Scylla said. Not for them, for the others. The great hall was filled with light and color. Nobles sat on silver chairs, dressed in fine robes. Music played softly in the background. At the center, the emperor sat tall, his eyes calm but sharp. Scylla walked in alone. Her steps were slow and even. She wore a plain dress, white with a single blue stripe, no gold, no jewelry, just her. The hall fell silent. The emperor raised his hand. Scylla of the Carrie, you were once a gift. Now you stand before us by choice. Do you understand the meaning of this gathering? Scylla bowed slightly. Yes, Emperor. You wish to test my silence. A few nobles shifted in their seats. The emperor leaned forward. Tell me, Scylla, what have you learned since being with the human? I have learned to read, she said, to ask questions, to choose my own steps. And do you think this is good? He asked. I do. And what if others begin to follow your path? They already have, she answered. The room stirred with whispers. The emperor raised his hand again. Silence returned. You were given as a gift, he said slowly. But now you claim your own name. Yes, Scylla said. I return myself. Long pause filled the air. Then she added, and I bring a message. The emperor did not stop her. We are not tools, Scylla said. Not objects to pass between hands. We are people. We remember who we were. And now we know who we can become. The hall stayed quiet. The emperor said no more. Scylla turned and walked out. Not one guard stopped her. That evening, she returned to Rin's quarters. The others were waiting. Tira ran to her. You spoke in the great hall. Yes, Sella said. And I walked out. They let you leave, asked Kavi. They couldn't stop me. Rin stepped forward. What you did today will spread, not only among the carry, but to others too. Sella nodded. Then we must be ready. The next morning, the first message came. A secret note left under a food tray. We heard her. We are ready. The second message came 2 hours later. If you lead, we will follow. By nightfall, the messages had tripled. Not just carry. Some were from other workers. Some even from junior guards. I didn't expect it to happen so fast, Sella said. Words move faster than weapons, Rin said. Kavi stepped forward. Then it is time. We gather them. Where? Tira asked. Here's the small, said another. Rin thought for a moment. There's an old storage hall in the lower sector. No cameras, no guards. I can unlock it with my badge. Sella looked at him. Then tomorrow night, we gather. The next day passed slowly. Sella kept busy with lessons. Rin prepared the space. Tira carried the message using old food routes. By sunset, over 40 had been reached. That night, under the cover of darkness, they entered the old storage hall. It was dusty and empty, but safe. One by one, they arrived. Some wore cloaks, some carried tools as if they were working, but they all came. Rin stood by the door. Scylla stood at the front. She looked at the crowd, young and old, weak and strong, but all awake. I stand here, she said, because I was given as a gift. She paused, but I speak now because I gave myself. Back, heads nodded. Double quotes. We are not here to fight with weapons, she said. We are here to remember, to speak, to build something better. Kavi stepped beside her. We are more than what they told us. Another voice called out. We are not alone anymore. Scylla raised her hand. This is the beginning. We will call at the assembly, Rin added, and no one can take it from you now. As the people began to talk and share, the old hall filled with quiet fire. Not loud, not violent, but strong. Hope, once only a whisper, had become a voice, and it was just getting louder. The old storage hall now had benches, light panels, and a large table made from scrap wood. It no longer felt empty. It felt alive. People came in small groups each night. Some brought food. Others brought books. Many just came to listen and feel less alone. Scylla stood near the center, helping a young carry girl write her name. The girl smiled wide as her fingers formed the letters one by one. Rin watched from the side. He never tried to lead. He only supported, fixed broken lights, and made sure the guards stayed away. His badge and position gave them cover for now, but he knew it would not last forever. Tira approached Scylla. The group is growing fast. We're running out of space. That is a good problem, Scylla said, but we should not gather too many at once. It may draw attention. Too late for that, Kavi said, walking in with a small folded note. She handed it to Scylla. Scylla opened it. The words were short. They are watching. Choose your next steps with care. She closed the paper and nodded. It has begun. Later. That night, Rin and Scylla sat alone in the garden beside the flower bed. The white flower she had planted had opened even more. Now, small buds surrounded it. They're afraid of you, Rin said. They're afraid of change. Scylla replied, Do you feel fear? Yes, she said, but not the kind that freezes you. Mine tells me to move forward, not run. Rin looked at the stars above. Earth took generations to change. Here, it is starting with one voice. Yours? Scylla shook her head. It's not my voice now. It belongs to many. Rin smiled. Even so, they still look to you. I will not lead them with power. Scylla said, only with truth. The next day, a surprise visitor came. A young Var noble named Kellen, dressed in blue-gray robes. His family worked in the palace's records office. He had never spoken to a carry in public before. He waited at the edge of the garden while Scylla watered the plants. You may speak, she said without fear. Kellen stepped forward. I heard. You in the hall. When you stood before the Emperor. I was there. Scylla turned to him. Did you hear words, or did you hear meaning? I heard both, he replied. At first, I was shocked, but later I felt uneasy. Not at you, at myself. I never asked where the carry come from, or what they wanted. You were taught not to ask, she said. He nodded. But now I want to know. Scylla handed him the watering bowl. Then start here. Help the flowers grow. He hesitated, then took it. And just like that, a wall broke. That evening, Scylla brought Kellen to the assembly. The others grew silent as he entered. I know his face, someone whispered. He works with the nobles. Scylla raised her hand. He came by choice. Let us listen before we judge. Kellen stood in front of them. I was blind, but I want to see, if you will let me. There was a long silence. Then Kavi stepped forward. Then sit and start with listening. And so he did. Over the next week, more surprises came. Not all Varn supported the old ways. Some had doubts. A few had always wondered but had no safe place to speak. Now, the assembly gave them one. Guards noticed the change. They began asking questions. More patrols appeared. The tension in the palace grew thicker with each passing day. Ren warned Scylla. They may move soon. The Emperor will not stay quiet forever. I know, Scylla said, but we are not here to break. We are here to rise. She called a meeting that night. The hall was full. Nearly 70 people. Carrie, young Varn, cooks, cleaners, workers from the edge of the city. This may be our last time gathering in this place, Scylla said. They are watching. A low murmur passed through the group. But the assembly is not a room. She said, it is an idea. And ideas travel. She picked up a small folded book. This book has 12 pages. It holds letters, poems, and one story. It will travel to the far kitchens tomorrow. Then to the worker barracks. Then to the outer farms. What if it's taken? Someone asked. Then another copy is made. Kavi said, and another. We've already prepared more. Scylla held up her hand. This is not the end, she said. This is the spark. The next morning, the assembly did not gather. Instead, they passed books, sent coded messages, painted symbols on hidden walls. A new one was simple, a flower with 12 petals, the sign of life, growth, and memory. One symbol appeared on a palace stair. Another near the Emperor's own gate. Ren received a message from Earth Council that same day. Tensions are rising. Do not involve yourself further. Stay neutral. He read it twice. Then he tore it in half. That evening, as Scylla walked past the lower quarter, she saw something strange. A line of candles, 13 in total, each lit, each placed with care. Beside them, a message written in Carrie letters. We are awake. We are not alone. We are not silent. Tira joined her. Do you think they'll try to stop us soon? Yes, Scylla said. But that will only prove that they fear us. What will we do if they come for us? Scylla looked at the candles. We speak louder. Far above, in the highest room of the palace, the Emperor stood beside his advisors. They showed him the flower symbol, the candle line, the growing reports of talk and movement. He said nothing for a long time. Then he turned toward the window. If you cut a flower, he said, another grows in its place. The morning sky was quiet, but something in the air had changed. The people of the city moved slower, whispering in corners. The symbols of the assembly had spread everywhere. Painted flowers on doors, small candles lit near steps, and the 12-petal sign carved into wooden fences and back walls. The message was clear. The carry were no longer silent. In the assembly's old meeting hall, Scylla stood with her hands folded. Ren stood beside her. Round them were those who had followed since the first day, Tira, Kavi, Rilo, and even Kellen, the young noble who had left his comfort behind. We all knew this day would come. Scylla said, they've ordered your rest. Ren added quietly, but not just you. Many of us, they fear the voice we carry. Scylla nodded. Then we will not hide. Let them see who we truly are. Tira stepped forward. We can protect you. We can move you far from the city. But Sela shook her head. I did not rise to run. I rose to be seen. Ren looked at her with quiet pride. Then we go together. By midday, guards filled the square outside the palace. A crowd had gathered. People watched from windows and rooftops. The emperor had remained silent for days, but now his voice would return. Or so they thought. Instead, it was Sela who stepped into the square. She wore no chains, no robe, just a simple white cloth tied at her waist and a small flower pin near her shoulder. Behind her came Ren, Kavi, and the others. They moved without fear. The crowd parted. Some gasped. Others stepped aside with respect. At the center of the square, a platform had been raised. The guards formed a tight circle, but none moved forward. Sela stepped onto the platform and looked out over the city. I was called a pet, she said, her voice calm but strong. A thing to be bought, dressed, and owned. But I am not a pet. I am not a shadow. I am not small. The wind carried her words across the square. I am Sela. I am Carrie, and I am free. The crowd grew quiet. We planted seeds in silence. She continued. We spoke softly, afraid of being heard. But now the flowers are blooming. You can see them on your walls, your gates, your homes. She looked at the guards. You may raise your weapons, but you cannot silence an idea. One of the guards lowered his eyes. Another stepped back. Then someone in the crowd shouted, "Let her speak." A few clapped, then more. The sound grew until it filled the air. The emperor watched from his window. He did not speak. He did not stop them. That night, Sela returned to the garden where it had all begun. The first white flower had grown taller. Then her waist now. Around it bloomed others, some pink, some yellow, all open to the sky. Ryan sat nearby, holding a small stone tablet. You've been offered a seat on the new council, he said. A mix of Carrie, Varn, and Earthborn. Sela smiled. I will accept, but only if the people can choose the rest. They will, Ren said. That is the future we spoke of. He looked at her quietly. You know, the day I first saw you, I thought you were afraid. I was, she replied. But fear is not the end. It is only the beginning of courage. He placed the tablet down and stood beside her. You changed this world. No, she said. We did. In the weeks that followed, changes came quickly. The palace gates opened. The rules changed. New schools were built where all children could learn. The assembly became a place of law and voice. Sela sat among them, not above, but beside. The symbol of the flower became the mark of unity. Banners flew from tall towers, and those who had once been silenced were now invited to speak. One morning, a young girl ran through the street carrying a small paper book. She handed it to a friend and said, "Read this. It's about the first assembly." Children drew 12-petal flowers in the sand. Old workers told stories they had once buried deep. And on the walls of the city, someone had painted a sentence in 3 languages. We were once nothing, but now we rise. On a quiet hill beyond the city, Sela and Ren stood and looked down at what they had helped grow. Ren held a message from Earth in his hand. They want me to return for an award, a medal. Will you go? Sela asked. Only if you come with me. She smiled softly. I think I would like to see the stars again. And when we return, he added, we bring the message farther. Sela nodded. Yes, because the seeds are not just for this place. They are for all who wait. She looked at the wind moving across the tall grass. No one should live in chains. Not here. Not anywhere. They stood together in silence as the sun began to rise. A new dawn had come. And the future waited with open hands.